TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, take me higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the morning for the breakfast bankroll, generally with Paul Stone, who is, excuse me, under the weather this week. So, Paul, please get healthy, and we will catch back with you on next Thursday for the NCAA football report. But we got a special guest for you today. And it's been a while since I've seen and talked to this gentleman. And I'm going to go back a handful of months, probably somewhere he doesn't want to go at some point of the show, but we'll get to that. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnerships. It's WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded that app, please head on over to Google Play. Download it. It's free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, CT Bets, the team, the family, second to none. The product off the charts. The East Coast is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, or should I say their new flavor, coconut. Head on over to where you purchase your adult drinks, like at the Boston Garden for the Bruins and the Celtics. Tell them JD from ECSI sent you. And of course, Terry Smith at Atlanta Steak and Seafood. Head on over to Facebook. Follow Terry Smith. Follow Atlanta Steak and Seafood. Tell him JD from ECSI sent you. Promo code CUSTOMER gets you 15% off your whole order over $199. Order today, you'll be grilling by the weekend. So good friend and colleague in the perfect spot here. What's going on right behind me at the Garden? The one and only Mr. Andy Powers. Morning,
Jeff,
sir.
Happy Thursday, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing better than the Bruins. How's that sound?
You sure you don't look it?
How's your summer been, Andy?
What summer, man? I feel like last week was July 4th, and now we're talking about hockey season starting. So it seems like it's been a blur, buddy. But you know me, I just wake up each day and attack each day and have a great time.
Well, before we get to BC hockey, number 2 in the country, number 1 in Hockey East, of course, I got to talk about the Bruins. What's going on with Swayman? Now, Cam came out, I guess, earlier this week and said he had 64 million reasons why I'd be playing. Rumor has it was just under around 7.8 per. I got to go back. I think they butchered this, meaning Allmark left the building. So as soon as Allmark left the building, Swayman's sitting here in the catbird seat saying, hey, they need me here. So I'm going to play a little hardball. Surprised how much hardball Swayman's playing at this point?
I am not. I think if you look at this situation as a whole, the Bruins, and this is, you and I are in the Northeast, I wouldn't say I'm a Bruins fan, but I'm a hockey fan, follow the local team. the Bruins have mismanaged Jeremy Swayman right from the second that he left Maine, right? Swayman was the Hockey East goaltender of the year at the University of Maine. He turns pro, has a pretty good season. But if you remember his first season, they dusted off Tuukka Rask from the mothballs to come back and play at the end of the season in the playoffs because they really didn't trust Swayman. And then the next year, they're going with the tandem with Ullmark and Swayman. Then they get to the playoffs. And in round one, Ullmark is hurt. He's a game day decision. You have a healthy Jeremy Swayman sitting on the bench, and you still go with the guy that's not 100%. So I don't begrudge Swayman at all for the stance that he's taking here. I think that this organization as a whole has historically been, pinches pennies when they can or when they try to. I think Swayman, not for nothing, and just so it's clear that I'm not 100% Jeremy Swayman. Jeremy Swayman is not Vasilevsky. Jeremy Swayman is not Bobrovsky, right? He hasn't had the postseason success that other goaltenders have had. So I don't think that he should be clamoring for every last dime and being paid like a top-tier goaltender because he hasn't proven that. But I also understand the sentiment which he's been shown by the Bruins, by the organization, where they've been extremely reluctant to give him his due. And now it comes down to dollars and cents. And, he's taking a hardline stance against them. And to your initial point, the Bruins, Don Sweeney was a Harvard guy. Cam Neely, obviously a Hall of Famer player. You should have had this deal done with Swayman before you traded Ullmark. Because now that, to your point, Ullmark's not in the building, your goaltender situation is in flux, and you have a top-tier goalie that's not in camp because you didn't get him signed earlier. So this is their mess. They got to sort it out. I don't expect Swayman back anytime soon, but we'll see what happens.
So the way I understand it, he's not an unrestricted free agent. Technically, He's got 2 years here. Andy, if it's about the 9.5 or 10, and the Bruins initially started at 6, now we're eased up to about 8, couldn't we do a bridge deal here? I mean, in other words, all right, Jeremy, I'll give you your 9.5, though we don't think you're worth it, and we'll do a 4-year deal, and we'll circle back in 2-3 years, see how you're doing.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, that's been done in the past. If you remember Tyler Bertuzzi, who was traded to the Bruins at the end of 2 seasons ago, he took a 1-year deal with Toronto, kind of as that gap year to sign and say, I'm going to prove my worth. He has since signed a long-term deal with the Blackhawks in this offseason. But if you listen to what Jeremy Swayman has said, and you and I, Jeff, we know, and I've been no secret about this, goaltenders are a weird bunch. They are. They always are. And even when you think the kid's normal, there's something off with them. There has to be something off with them where you get pucks fired at 100 miles an hour at your temple. But the things that he said is about, making sure that he progresses the goaltender position and getting every last time. So it doesn't sound like he wants to take a gap year or a bridge contract. It sounds like he's looking for that long-term set the market kind of deal, which, again, to be fair, on the Bruins' behalf, he hasn't proven himself to be that top echelon goaltender that can win you a Stanley Cup. He's a good goaltender, no doubt. But I think he's like a second-tier goalie out to prove himself, much like the kid in Dallas, who was the BU goaltender, Jake Ottinger. You're like in that range, but he certainly sounds like he wants top-tier money.
And the comedy here is he was a tandem. And I think, as you know, back in the day, and you talked about Vasilevsky, talk about, go back to the Brodeur, the Ruaz. These guys were behind the pipes 58, 60 games of the year. Your backup played every third game. I hear the hugs were every game, Ullmark 1 game, Swayman. So as a goalie, when you're playing every other game, you're going to be fresh. You're going to be sharper than a lot of the 1A goalies that are playing 55, 60 games of the year. And I think Cam and Sweeney are rocking a hard place. As you said, Ullmark's gone. We need you now. And in the back of their head saying, you want to get paid Vasilevsky money here, who wins a trophy, wins a cup, then gets paid that. I don't know if you can go 60 games a year. Do you?
No, I think this situation for you and I, again, in this area, This is so Bruins, it hurts. At the end of last season, you had two top-tier goalies, and now you're on the precipice of the next season. You have neither. So you look at the names that have walked out of this organization: Joe Thornton, even Ray Bourque, they traded him to win a Stanley Cup. Tyler Seguin, Phil Kessel, guys who are still putting up points that played for the Bruins. They had under their control, and they guessed wrong, and not that they haven't guessed right on a few of the other guys that have walked out, but to mismanage this situation right now and to be on the eve of the season with neither one in your locker room, that's really embarrassing.
For the last handful of years, they've been top 5, top 7 in the sports betting market to win the East, to get to the Cup. Circa had them plus $3,000 to win the Cup this year, a big drop off to where they have been. Give us your outlook of the team, how it's built, and why is there a big discrepancy this year compared to the last handful of years, Andy?
Well, I think if you look at the talent that they lost, Patrice Bergeron, Krejci, gone 2 years ago, I think that from a top 6 standpoint, you look at other teams around the league. Carolina's gotten better. Florida just won the Stanley Cup. This is just in the East. The Rangers look like they're really ready to make a run and committed to this year with all the talent that they have. Boston lacks that top 6 forward that's going to put them over the edge. They had some nice offseason signings, but they don't have that splashy forward. Pasternak is one, but he's proven to be hot and cold. I think that if you look at the Bruins as a whole, the question mark in net, and then the lack of production consistency up front in the forward position, that's why you look at the odds and why they've dropped so significantly. They used to be, their strength was their depth from top to bottom. Now they have depth, but it's all third, fourth line guys like through the top 6, and they don't have that high energy, that point guy that's he's got to be on the point sheet every night. Pasternak certainly is a top tier producer, but he goes through the stretches where he doesn't. But they really haven't complemented him as well as they should have around him.
They've added some beef. They've added some size. McAvoy's come out and says he's the midget in the room when it comes to the decor. Are they trying to almost build that big bad Bruins look, and then again start with Swayman and the decor, and then work up front instead of from center back?
Yeah, I think I see what they're doing. It might be an overreaction to what kind of they've been getting hammered with the past couple of years. Undersized defenseman, McAvoy is one of them. In the postseason, he almost disappears, right? Because the postseason is such a different animal when it comes to hockey. But they've added some bulk in the back end. They're going back to kind of the late 90s, early 2000, where you just have these big monsters on the back end that just eat space. Now, they're not going to be jumping in the play. They're not tremendous skaters, but they'd rather err on the side of, hey, we're going to be good in our own zone. We're going to clear the front of the net, rather than getting that guy like a Grizzly who they let walk out, being able to jump in the play. So, yeah, I think that's actually not only them, too. I think NHL as a whole is kind of, you look at where the league's going, they've gotten away from the undersized skilled defenseman like a Torrey Krug type to where those big bodies just eating space, long reach, really good in the D zone. So the Bruins are a bit of an overreaction there, but I like what they've done on the back end. I think Carlo's a really good young defenseman. McAvoy is a good regular season defenseman, just needs postseason success, and they've complemented with some big bodies around him.
Let's start in the East. Florida Stanley Cup champs. What a season they had. Bruins open up in Florida for the banner ceremony. Ought to be interesting on Tuesday there. Florida. We know about Toronto. One of these years, either Toronto's going to win the Cup or Rory McIlroy is going to win the Masters. I don't know what's going to come first there. Carolina, I've been holding a ticket for them the last couple of years. The sexy play is the Devils, I'm hearing through the cracks of the experts. How do you see the East shaping up?
Well, to me, I think it's about the New York Rangers. I think if you look at the moves that they make, they have everything really. They have goaltending. They have a good defensive core, and then they have some forwards that can really fill the net. So I think if they stay healthy, I think the Rangers, they have to cross that chasm, too, of being a good regular season team and having postseason success. I think Florida with Bobrovsky, I mean, they're always going to be trouble. I think Florida proved last year that they have some guys that can play in crunch time. But it's always tough. It's such a long run to win a Stanley Cup and then to come right back and do it again. Like there's going to be some guys that are beat up along the way for the Panthers. I'm with you. I like Carolina. They cannot bridge that gap between really good regular season and having success in the postseason. And then, of course, as you know, the Toronto Maple Leafs, every year it seems like they're on the verge of either winning the cup or blowing everything to bits up in Toronto. And they changed captains from Tavares last year to Austin Matthews, a different leadership. I don't think that changes much other than Matthews wearing the C, but he's clearly their best player. Mitch Marner needs to have a good year. And then the question mark in Toronto is always going to be goaltending. I mean, you look at the situation. I don't know how Toronto's paid all these guys, but if I'm the Maple Leafs, I'm licking my lips at Jeremy Swayman and be like, hey, we need a guy like that can just really answer the questions that we have in net and really lock it down. So I don't know how they'd go about a trade. Maybe they have some top tier talent that the Bruins would need. We talked about the Bruins top 6 not being where it needs to be if you're going to have the long-term success. So maybe there's something there that they can work in, but I think it's the Rangers this year in the East.
Go out west, the year of obviously Edmonton, an amazing run, obviously losing the cup to Florida. The best player on ice, of course, Connor McDavid. Big Stars fan last year. We were. I'm just the Avs will be the Avs, obviously. Yeah. I'm real high on Vancouver this year, and the sexy pick is the Nashville Predators. And the dogs are barking. We love that here. When the dogs are barking, we know we're on to something. How do you see the West this year, Andy?
Well, they're hungry for the cup. These dogs are hungry for the cup, so they're ready to get after it. But I think in the West, Edmonton is always going to be the sexy pick just because, much like Toronto, they're front-loaded. They're exciting to watch. Connor McDavid is must-see TV anytime he's on. But they have questions on the back end. I mean, postseason hockey is all about defense. We saw what Bobrovsky did last year for the Panthers. The Stars are always there in the West at the end, and they have Jake Ottinger in net, the big goaltender. They got some players up front. I think Colorado's a team that they won the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago, but that's a group, that's an organization that wanted more out of that core. So they need if they only win one cup with the talent that they have, I don't think that they're going to be satisfied with that. Las Vegas is built from the ground up to be successful every season, so they're going to be good. And then you look at what Vancouver did. Vancouver signed a bunch of guys. They got Jake DeBrusk. They're trying to be competitive in that Western Conference. So I think it'll be interesting. I think for me, the Oilers, they proved last year that they could get to the final. But you know what year, the last year that a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup, right, Jeff?
A long time ago.
1993, the Montreal Canadiens. And as far as hockey fans in the U.S., I already talked about it. I'm not a Bruins fan. I live in the New England. I'm a hockey fan. That's the biggest accomplishment that we have going for us, is that those Canadian fans, whatever, they haven't seen the cup on Canadian soil since 1993. That's the best streak in sports, and I want to see it keep going.
So I'm going to put you to the test. It's almost 11:20. It's October 3rd. We're going to have you on plenty of more times, obviously, if your schedule fits. Stanley Cup. Who's in the Stanley Cup and who's hoisting the Stanley Cup?
I'm going to go with the Rangers against the Colorado Avalanche. And I'm just right now, because I'm East Coast biased. I don't like, and that's another thing too. Don't get me started where the SEC people are like, well, I'm rooting for anybody in the SEC. No, an enemy of my enemy. I'm from Boston. New York is my enemy. I don't want to see them win. I'm going with Colorado Avalanche hoisting the Stanley Cup over the New York Rangers.
Well, we have that time stamped here, so I can't wait to bring that back throughout the season. All right. Hold on to your chair. I got to take you back a handful of months. Our good friend, Mr. Anthony Pepe, the Diehards, Food Truck Festivals. You guys were at the Frozen Four. A team, a wagon, a team that was just so fun to watch. And that's, of course, the BC Eagles in the championship game. They were favored over 2-1 to win that game. Before we get into that game and bring back those memories, what was your thoughts, once you got to the Frozen Four, a tough first game that you guys muscled through, and then leading up to before the face-off of obviously the championship game, Andy?
To be honest, I'm going to be totally candid with you here. I thought it was going to be a coronation of Boston College. They were the best team in college hockey for the second half of the season. I think they lost one game in the second half of the season. They went into the Frozen Four. The first game they played was against Michigan. I felt like Michigan, from a talent level, was comparable. BC blew them out of the rink right from the start. And going into the national championship game, I didn't know much about Denver. I knew Denver beat Boston College early in the season. I knew Denver was, an older group, a mature group. But I really didn't think that there was any way that they could stop the offensive juggernaut that was Boston College, with Cutter Gauthier, Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, Gabe Perreault. I thought it was going to be a coronation. And I don't know if you know this about me, Jeff, but I'm a bit boisterous. So people on the way to the rink that day, and Anthony Pepe, I hope he's all right. I know he lives in Canton. That place is a mess. But walking to the rink that day, I was saying, this is I can't wait to see BC win a national championship, getting ahead of myself, which I obviously do because back in my late 20s, I was talking about how beautiful my hair was, and now you can see how I look. But I thought Denver, to give them all the credit and they deserve, there was only one team in the country that could have been, only one team that could have played the way that Denver played to beat Boston College, and to shut them out was unbelievable on behalf of the Pioneers. And I think head coach Carl and the Denver Pioneers absolutely outplayed Boston College in the national championship game and deserved to win the national championship. But I think if BC plays them 5 more times, they can beat them 3. But it's what you do that night, and unfortunately Boston College got outplayed that night. And you got to tip your cap to the Denver Pioneers, who are the defending national champions in the NCAA Division I hockey circles.
Well, let's now bring it into 2024, 2025. You and Pep will be heading up to Michigan State soon to watch that game there. Number 1 in Hockey East, number 2 in the country right now. The Bean Pot, I enjoy going to BC, BU. My daughters are UConn, so whenever I can get a BU UConn, a BC UConn, we're always there. Give us the thought process and the outlook initially from a BC standpoint in the Hockey East.
Well, I think Boston College Hockey East is going to be very good. It was very good last year. You saw Maine had some really good young talent. They lost one of their young stars signed, I think, with Carolina. BU was really talented. They were another team in the Frozen Four last year. I think UConn's a team that's kind of on the rise. They need to kind of keep guys in-house, and the transfer portal has really killed them. They lost their best player who transferred to Minnesota. But Boston College, we talked a lot about goaltending on today. Boston College has the best college goaltender in the country, and Jacob Fowler. He's coming back for his sophomore season. He's hands down. There's not even Trey Augustine in Michigan State, which we'll see next week, is a really, really capable goaltender. But for me, my money, Jacob Fowler is the best goalie in the country. I think BC lost some offensive weapons with Cutter Gauthier signing with Anaheim and with Will Smith signing with San Jose. But they bring in the Hagens brothers. The one of the younger brother is probably going to be the first pick in the NHL draft, much like Macklin Celebrini at BU was last year. So BC just reloaded. They're going to be really hard to deal with. I think, early in the season, BC, their schedule is no joke. I mean, they start out at Michigan State, then they go right back out to St. Cloud State. So Greg Brown, who's the head coach, who's done an unbelievable job in his transition, taking over for Hall of Famer Jerry York, has done a great job transitioning, just reloading every year and playing a really top caliber schedule. So I BC will win Hockey East, not a doubt in my mind. Hopefully they win the Bean Pot along the way. I think they'll be a really high seed, if not the top seed in the NCAA tournament when it starts. But I'm poised to get BC, me, Anthony Pepe, right back to the Frozen Four, which is in St. Louis this year. I'm a big Bud Light guy, so right to the home of Budweiser, I'll be there.
Last question for you, because I know you got a busy day ahead of you. Are we biased in this regards? I think college football and everyone just wants to hand the award to the SEC, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Georgia. We watch BC BU. We go to the Bean Pot. Nothing better than the Bean Pot. Oh, my God. And by the way, just FYI, Anthony will have a food truck festival the first Monday of the Bean Pot. Wink, wink. If, you need a little help in, your setup or something, I will be available there for that Monday. So, but when you talk about the Minnesotas, you talk about the Denvers, you talk about the Michigans, what is the difference? Is it the style of play? Because you got the better roster. We've seen what these teams can do, but when we get to that Frozen Four, when we're facing these guys, usually in the end, one of these Minnesotas, Denvers, St. Cloud, a standard. Why is that, Andy?
Well, I think that there's a couple things that go into it. First of all, Hockey East has had some down years, but the last year they sent, I think, 5 teams to the NCAA tournament. So you do in the East is where the best teams are as a whole. So you do take a beating through the regular season because you play a lot of top tier teams as you go. I think that if you look at the Western teams probably do a better job of complementing young talent with older guys, right? College hockey as a system is broken. There's 25-year-old kids playing college hockey. That's not what college hockey should be about. But if that's the rules, the Western teams do have, like Denver BC was the youngest team in Division I hockey last year. Denver wasn't the youngest, but they had some older upperclassmen that were seasoned. They were aged and they were able to lean on the younger talent of BC. I think in the East has a lot of more young talent that's at risk of leaving, so they don't get to their junior, senior year because they signed and they're playing under their pro contract, where most Western teams have a better balance of kids that play 4 years and they're complemented with young kids that come in. And I'm not saying that Western teams don't get the young stars like the Eastern teams do, but if you look at last year, BC had an entire freshman line, first-round picks. Macklin Celebrini, top pick in the NHL draft, was a BU kid. I talked about the kid at Maine who was signed after his freshman year to Carolina. The Western teams they get young kids. I'm not saying they don't. Michigan's one of them, but Western teams do have an older roster by nature.
Well, I can't wait. Obviously, you guys will be heading off to Michigan State next week. Obviously, safe travels. Excited for Tuesday with the Bruins. We'll be keeping you on speed dial throughout the year for these guest appearances. Have a great weekend. Stay out of that city called Canton or town or whatever, and I'll tell Pepe you send him his regards.
Yeah, just let me know that he's okay. I'm worried. The Canton's like a prison riot there. You never know what's going to happen. And I'm always here for you. So I just need 10 minutes to do my makeup and stuff, and I'll be ready.
Thank you so much, Andy. Behave yourself. We'll catch up.
Good to talk, Jeff. Talk to you soon.
Yes. Andy Powers, I would say go follow him on social media, but he doesn't do much social media. But again, inside and out, hands down, knows the NHL and, of course, BC hockey, the Eagles, who are primed, set to get back to that final, that Frozen Four, this year in St. Louis. Here, I want to give a shout out to everyone watching and listening. Of course, if you have not head over to YouTube, please do. East Coast Sports Investors, subscribe. It's free. Today at 3 o'clock, Lou Finicaro, UFC 307, Salt Lake City. We're back from Paris. He's going to break down this weekend's fights in the Octagon in Salt Lake City. And at 5 o'clock, myself and Riley Magnuson will be back for the closing bell. Again, thank you to Andy Powers for showing up on short notice. And Paul Stone, we missed you, brother. Get healthy. Get healthy soon. Best of luck in your college plays this week and weekend. And we will catch you next Thursday at 11 a.m. To everyone else, have a blessed morning. And we'll see you this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Fight Night Fortunes. Lou Finicaro at GamLou. See you soon.